and outdoors from now on as well. And
Hello.
Insult me, now they can't fault me. Makes them so salty to see me flying high. What they knew about me, should've never doubted me. Should've known it was only just a matter of time. Me and the gang, we had plans in the pipeline. We was gonna bust, was just waiting for the right time. Gonna be a millionaire without using a lifeline. Me and the gang, we had plans in the pipeline. We was gonna bust, was just waiting for the right time. Gonna be a millionaire without using a lifeline.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Top of the Pops, where we're celebrating our top 2021 songs of 2020.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone.
the classroom delayed by about a week, but the Stormont executive is currently discussing possible further restrictions, and the First Minister Arlene Foster has said that, look, she would regret it very much if schools had to close like they did back in March, but that is one of the things that they must look at might having to do.
Unfortunately, the advice that is coming to us is very stark. Today we had 1,801 positive cases in terms of COVID-19, and if you look over the last 7 days, it has risen from 5,000 over 7 days to well over 12,000 for those 7 days. So there's been a huge increase in the number of people testing positive for COVID-19. That is very alarming, and unfortunately we will meet tonight and we'll have some very difficult decisions to take.
Now, because of that sharp rise in cases, one thing that the Deputy First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, has been calling for is saying, look, put that stay-at-home message back into law, back as it was in previous lockdowns. And another warning today from the Chief Medical Officer in Northern Ireland, who's saying, yes, we've seen that sharp spike in cases since Christmas, but actually this peak that we're expected in this wave of the virus isn't expected until mid-January in Northern Ireland. So a belief that it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I will just leave you with one piece of positive news that we received today, and that is the percentage of people over 80 with the virus has fallen, and that is a possible sign, we're told, that the vaccine may be starting to work.
Emma, thank you so much. Emma Vardy there with the latest on the position in Northern Ireland. The time is about 2 minutes to 8, so less than 2 minutes to go to the appointed hour when the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is due to address people primarily in England in terms of the measures that he's going to mention. He's at Downing Street and he's going to be talking there in, as I say, just under a couple of minutes' time. So in the minute or so remaining, I'm going to bring Vicky Young back in. Vicky's still outside number 10 there. And just a brief thought at this point, Vicky, about the point I raised with Hugh Pym. The word from lots of experts that this action is just too slow. It's been too cumbersome. What's the view inside number 10?
Well, they've always seen this very much as a balance. If you think back to the beginning of this pandemic, of course, the thought about trying to protect people's lives and protect the NHS was absolutely paramount, and it's remained so. But the government would say, and ministers would say, look, of course, they have to balance that with the economy, with interfering with people's lives, really. You know, a prime minister, any prime minister, having to effectively dictate to people who they can see and when they can see it, that is a problem for anybody. But you can tell, of course, Boris Johnson extremely reluctant to do that, and has been from the beginning. And you know, the peaks and troughs really of this past 9 months, where I think many people did hope that come the summer the worst was behind us. That turned out not to be the case, and yes, he's been criticised for not acting sooner.
Vicky, thank you very much. We'll talk to you after Mr Johnson has spoken. If you're just joining us, you're watching a BBC News special, and we're broadcasting this address by the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, on the latest measures in the pandemic.
Since the pandemic began last year, the whole United Kingdom has been engaged in a great national effort to fight COVID. And there's no doubt that in fighting the old variant of the virus, our collective efforts were working and would have continued to work. But we now have a new variant of the virus, and it's been both frustrating and alarming to see the speed with which the new variant is spreading. Our scientists have confirmed this new variant is between 50 and 70% more transmissible. That means you're much, much more likely to catch the virus and to pass it on. As I speak to you tonight, our hospitals are under more pressure from COVID than at any time since the start of the pandemic. In England alone, the number of COVID patients in hospitals has increased by nearly a third in the last week to almost 27,000. And that number is 40% higher than the first peak in April. On the 29th of December, more than 80,000 people tested positive for COVID across the UK, a new record. The number of deaths is up by 20% over the last week and will sadly rise further. And my thoughts are with all those who've lost loved ones. With most of the country already under extreme measures, it's clear that we need to do more together to bring this new variant under control while our vaccines are rolled out. In England, we must therefore go into a national lockdown which is tough enough to contain this variant. That means the government is once again instructing you to stay at home. You may only leave home for limited reasons permitted in law, such as to shop for essentials, to work if you absolutely cannot work from home, to exercise, to seek medical assistance, such as getting a COVID test, or to escape domestic abuse. The full details of what you can and can't do will be available at gov.uk/coronavirus. If you're clinically extremely vulnerable, we're advising you to begin shielding again, and you will shortly receive a letter about what this means for you. And because we now have to do everything we possibly can to stop the spread of the disease, primary schools, secondary schools, and colleges across England must move to remote provision from tomorrow, except for vulnerable children and the children of key workers. Everyone will still be able to access early years settings such as nurseries. We recognise that this will mean it's not possible or fair for all exams to go ahead this summer as normal. The Education Secretary will work with Ofqual to put in place alternative arrangements. We will provide extra support to ensure that pupils entitled to free school meals will continue to receive them while schools are closed, and we will distribute more devices to support remote education. I completely understand.